So, I am going to introduce our next speaker, Maurizio Stella. So, Maurizio is Vice President of Enterprise Sales at Ranosys. He has over 12 years' experience in e-commerce and has worked both in the partner and platform side, such as Salesforce. Maurizio has now been with the Ranosys team for 3 years. But what Maurizio is most passionate about is leveraging technology to deliver positive change within an organization. So, the topic of the next session is the power of simplicity. And I think this is going to be a really interesting one because it's quite easy to overcomplicate things, overcomplicate your website, lots of calls to action, and we find that that can have a really negative impact on the customer experience. So I'm really keen to hear more, as I'm sure you are. So let's welcome Maurizio to the stage.
Thank you. All right, hello everyone. So I'm probably going to make this a little bit more upbeat because there's a lot of things to go through. And I don't have all day. However, I will be available here afterwards. So hopefully we can carry on the conversation. So the power of simplicity. Now, I'd like to make this quite interactive and a bit like a dialogue. Okay, so there will be a little bit of interaction, so if you want to download the app of menti.com and then insert the code, or you can go on menti.com, there'll be a few questions here and there that you can answer with your mobile phones. So this is the first opportunity for you to actually use your mobile phone because it's a welcome thing to do. All right, so let's start it this way. I believe that we have come to a moment in time where we've all understood that we need to make a switch. And I think it's clear to everyone that it would be a great thing to do to stop trying to guess what the next thing to change on the website is. And there should be some form of method, application, technology, something that allows us to calculate with precision what is the next thing that needs to be changed on an e-com site. So regardless of whether you are a merchant or whether you're a project manager working on one of the projects for a client, it would be fantastic to have this situation where you have a clear list of priorities, and I'm not talking about the backlog, which is the requirement coming from the client or from the merchant. I'm talking about something tangible, quantifiable, that tells you that if you do this, you're going to have a positive ROI, right? So the certainty that every change that you implement on a website is actually going to deliver value for money, okay? This is something that hasn't been fully achieved yet. And I believe that with artificial intelligence, we will gradually go in that direction. But at the moment, it's not quite like that. Simplicity in decision-making isn't something that we have fully achieved yet. And at the moment, we are still there trying to figure out and discuss what are we going to change next on the website? What is going to have the biggest impact, right? So, as I said, my name is Maurizio Stella. I'm Vice President of Enterprise Sales here at Ranosys. And today I'm actually here to tell you that this is now possible to an extent, and that we are testing it and collaborating with some companies to see whether this is actually achievable in a reliable manner going forwards. So now I would like to learn a little bit about the audience. So what I'll do is I'll switch to Menti. There we go. Okay, and I see that people are already answering. So, So now I see that there's a bit of charisma here. It's great. So what I wanted to know is essentially who the audience is and what we have here, because this is relevant for anyone. You don't even have to be working in e-commerce. Imagine yourself as a user of e-commerce, right? And there are sites that you visit that you feel that they are beautiful, however, maybe highly dysfunctional. So I think we've come to a point where we all would like to be able to browse a website and shop in a way that feels personal, in a way that feels engaging, safe, and ultimately easy. So, changing, okay. So, we're for agency, fine. So I guess we have a number of like developers and a number of project managers. So hands up on the project management side of things, or consultants, okay, hello, and hands up for the developers, okay, perfect. Right, so point being is that no matter what role you cover really, the point is that with what we have been working on, hopefully you'll be able to advise your clients, and merchants will be able to self-assess what their experience is like. So I'm going to move on now, and thanks for this, but I'm also going to introduce myself a little bit. Just, there we go. So I'm Italian, born in Italy, grown up all over the place. I have lived in Italy initially, and then I moved on to some other countries, worked in different places. So I've got exposure to how e-com works across different countries, like directly. I could kind of feel it on my skin. And currently I live in London, as we said before, and we have Meet Magento there as well. It's a lot nicer here. And, you know, I started my career as an airplane pilot, which probably has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. But actually, I did that because I wanted to be in the clouds. I had no idea that 20 years later I'd be selling them. But this is what it is. So on top of working with clouds and e-commerce, I'm a passionate e-commerce researcher. I have been dedicating a vast amount of my career into digging in deep into what strategy is for e-com, into what works, what doesn't, analyzing all sorts of things. And there is one thing that I am not particularly fond of, which is analyzing infinite amount of data across multiple platforms, right? That's something that I'm not comfortable with, numbers. Makes you wonder why I'm in sales. But let's move on, and I'll tell you what I'm going to be telling you today. So, point being is that I've been carrying out a research. It's quite an ambitious research, and it's about reverse engineering e-commerce success. So essentially, I'll be saying more about it, but essentially, is it possible to calculate reliably, predictably, what is going to have a positive impact and generate that success on e-commerce? I'll be sharing some of the learnings that I've picked up along the way, and I will leave you with something that can be used as a tool to make that switch from trying to guess what is going to be helpful to being able to calculate the impact of any change that you do across the entire experience. Is anyone interested in that, by the way? Hands up. Okay, that's good, at least. Okay, so the research. Let's move to the next slide here. So over the last 4.5 years, I guess, I have audited about 70, now close to 80 businesses, e-com businesses. And this audit has gone in deep. We have been looking at you know, what kind of investments they made, what worked, what didn't, how much ROI they got back, why didn't work, how the team felt about it. So we went in really deep. And these are companies across multiple industry verticals, countries, different type of companies. There is one thing to say, that my research has mainly been done in Europe. And I'm curious to understand if this is applicable here as well, at the same level that it is in Europe. I believe so. And I've also interviewed more than 160, it's 167, e-commerce leaders to really understand how they think, how they operate, and how they make decisions, and how they calculate the impacts of the decisions that they've made. So every change that they make, is it just a matter of conversion rates? What are we doing? How are we calculating that? And to understand why those changes had an impact, I've also sent out in excess of 400 surveys to end consumers, And these end consumers, they received questions which were very specific because some areas of experience, some areas of experience are not easy to decode at all. And we'll talk more about that as well. So, again, the size of the companies, just to make sure that that you can relate to this, like trying to understand what kind of companies have been taking part and are still taking part in this kind of research. So these are companies with online revenues that range from $500,000 to $1 billion. And that means that we're looking at the corner shop just as much as we're looking at the big, huge groups that have multiple companies within them, multiple brands. But the vast majority of them are, of course, like the middle market where you see the bulk of the companies, so ranging from 5 to 25 million revenue. Can you relate to this? Is this the kind of companies that you work with or that you are? Like hands up or yes or no? Yep, okay. So now I'll tell you about the research, because otherwise it doesn't really make too much sense. So, reverse engineering e-commerce success. Not an easy task, by all means, and in fact, a lot more complicated than what I thought initially. I was really hoping that it would be a matter of, oh, this investment works, so we can apply it to everyone. Of course it's not. So, to do that, to understand whether it can be reverse engineered, good news is that it can to a vast extent, we had to break it down. So this experience that we deliver, we had to break it down into so many points. And we have identified more than 40 key moments in which the experience has its highest impact. I'm not going to go into the details of this specifically, also because it's not quite enough yet. Those key moments that we will now talk about have been further broken down to pinpoint what are the elements of the experience that actually have that impact, right? So what makes it a good or bad experience in that moment? For which user? And from there, this is the fun part that I think everybody will be interested in. We have created, I say we, by the way, because although I've been carrying out the research, I've been helped by all sorts of people along the way, so it's always a we. And even now, we have conversations with e-commerce leaders all over the world to carry on this conversation. So we have tried to build an assessment, a something, let's say, a method, an approach that will help you to self-assess your business and your experiences and understand where they lack. So if it was only a matter of understanding what works, that's cool, fine, but then the knowledge would be with us. But we need to find a way of switching, of going into a derivative decision-making model. So when I talk about simplicity and the power of simplicity, it's not about simplicity of the interface. It's the simplicity of understanding what needs to be done next with a certain level of certainty so that your investments are secured. Now, I'm going to go into the next phase. Oh yeah, is everybody following me still? Yeah, nobody's fallen asleep yet? That's good. Making progress. So the first thing to understand is what is e-commerce success, right? So you can't quantify success unless you know what it is. And again, I've been speaking with CEOs and e-commerce directors, etc. So, well, what is this e-commerce success? So it breaks down, they came up with all sorts of things. And it's a blend. It's a matter of meeting the expectations of the end consumer, of the customer. But you also need to serve a business purpose, because otherwise, why are you doing it in the first place, right? So we want to grow the business. There needs to be a purpose to that. And all of these things here that have originally been separated, they kind of get clustered together all of a sudden, because values of the company, they are part of the experience. Convenience is part of the experience. Security even is part of the experience. Nobody ever mentions security when you're like, I'm browsing a site, oh, this looks really secure. But if the site doesn't feel secure, then you can rest assured that your conversion rates will go down. So in the end, it boils down to this. There is the experience that we're delivering is one of the biggest components of what makes or breaks the success of a website. And actually, I'll go further than that, of an experience. And it's really strange because we're saying that an experience is what makes or breaks the experience. But it is actually so because it goes beyond e-commerce. So during this research, we have identified all sorts of things. So of course companies have taken part because maybe they weren't too sure about what they were doing, or they wanted to improve their results, or they just couldn't pinpoint what wasn't quite working. And Simon, by the way, you mentioned before that we need to help the community in understanding what they need to do, right? And this is all about that. This is something that can only be achieved if there is the active participation of businesses. So we want to encourage that dialogue. And I'll give you more about that afterwards. So these are some common scenarios that we have found. It doesn't mean that it's applicable to you, but if you think of the projects you work on, or the e-com site that you run, or that you're responsible for, you may find some of these being quite familiar. So I'll give one or two examples just to make it more relevant. Think of a marketplace. If you think of a marketplace, they don't really have control over the product information because it comes from the merchants. And when it lands on their site and populates their web pages, you start having all sorts of issues because the information is inconsistent. Then your filtering systems don't work properly. Then your search doesn't work properly. Okay? So everything that we look at, every element of these websites are interconnected. But it goes beyond that as well, because these are symptoms. This is like having a flu and saying, oh, I have the cough, let's cure the cough. No, you need to cure the flu, right? I think we've learned something about flus recently. So it's really a matter of understanding when something that we see is a symptom or whether it's the disease. So here is where I want to ask you again, like, if you can participate. Have a look at these, right? And go back on Menti. And on Menti, voila. What might be the root cause? Your opinion, right? So I'll go back to the slide. If you look at these, do you see anything in common? Is there anything that strikes you as potentially being the root cause of this? And we'll see in just a second. Hopefully your answer's coming up. If nothing comes up, then I'm in trouble. Please write. Okay. Oh, okay. Lack of strategy. Good. Lack of staff customer engagement. Opaque business operations. Too many call to actions. Roadmap confused with backlog. Yeah. There's a number of elements here that we start seeing. And in fact, okay, no business processes. Lack of business strategy, lack of data evaluate, okay, not automating things. I think we can carry on, and what you'll see, and the point of this exercise, is really that there's a million reasons, right, behind it. And you could always, the issue is understanding which one is the true one. So how much time can your business spend, or can afford to spend, in even figuring out what is at the back of it all, right? That's why we keep doing small experiments. Fix this, A/B test, fix that, A/B test, change this, A/B test. But can we move away from this? Can we start thinking in a different way? I think that there needs to be a paradigm shift if we want to see that we're able to make decisions quickly, safely, knowing what there is to come, and also plan our work in a much easier way. If you know what you have to do and what's going to have an impact, your team can work really, really well. So, I love this. I'm going to go back to this afterwards as well, if I can. So, I'm going to move away. And what we have found by implementing change with the companies that have been collaborating with us is that it is a strategic problem. And the problem is not that there is a bad strategy. The problem is that strategy is seen as, Simon, you said before, as strategy overall. because it's no longer commerce, it's no longer e-commerce. There are different channels, there is different everything. And it is true that it's strategy overall, but you need to break down that strategy to understand where you need to act and how. So we found this way of dividing into 4 main things. The first thing is about the experience. So you want to have a clear strategy around what experience you want to offer to your customers, okay? And what does this mean? This means that you are completely clueless of that experience, of what you need to deliver, unless you're able to assess what it is that they expect from you, okay? I've got a little story here. So on Sunday, I landed here in Singapore. And I bought the tickets online with an airline. I'm not going to mention them. And it was all nice and good. The e-com site was smooth. It worked really, really well. And then I went and took my flight. And I had about 20 centimeters between my face and the screen in front of me. I couldn't move my legs, hardly. Yes, it was economy class. And when I got to the hotel afterwards, I tried to remove the labels from the luggage. You know those fantastic labels that they put there to make sure that you don't lose your luggage? They were glued so hard that I couldn't rip them off. It took minutes, not seconds, minutes. And once I did that, my handle was completely covered in glue, and so was my hand. Hideous. We had 4 pieces of luggages. So it's like, I hated it, thoroughly hated it. My experience was definitely compromised. I was happy about the online experience. I wasn't happy about my luggage. I can assure you of that. And the thing is this, what's my conversion rate going to be next time I'm going to go and buy a ticket? If I have a comparable choice and I can choose between that airline and someone else who hopefully doesn't use as much glue, right? I would rather buy from those if the price is not as high. So the point being is that the experience that I have across any channel, any moment of my existence as a customer, so my entire customer life cycle, has an impact on the conversion rates that you have online. It has an impact on the conversion rates that you have on marketplaces, on the conversion that you have on your content, on my engagement with you. Because I am fed up of cleaning glue from my hand. I want to go glueless, right? So now experience isn't that straightforward anymore, is it? Because you're just looking at the data or the analytical data that you have across your different channels. You're not looking at the analytical data that you have in my hotel room. It's impossible. So you can't always base everything on analytics. You need to go beyond that. We need to transcend. So, what we've noticed with these companies that we've been working for, I need to breathe a little. In fact, I'll drink. Is everybody still with me? Yep, okay, cool. So, when we're looking at this, we have to understand that with the application of new strategy, we have to think of experience in the broader sense of the word. As broad as you can probably think of it, okay? Just forget about e-com, forget about websites, just think about experience. And of course today we're talking about e-commerce, right? So let's try to do a little exercise here. If you go on Menti, I would like to ask you what you think that experience is. This is a word cloud, so just please insert one word. You can answer up to 5 times. Think of things that relate to experience in general terms, right? What are they? If you consider, I'll give an example. We've sent out surveys in regards to this to the end consumers, the 400 end consumers that we talked about before. I say we, it's me and the little guy in my head. And those surveys also asked, what makes experience? There were things like politeness. That's got nothing to do with the website. That's got to do with customer service, with the engagement that people have with your store assistant, right? I had a conversation yesterday about this, and I see a person there in the public. And, sometimes if you have stores, you have to make sure that the experience that people receive within the store is in line with the experience that you're delivering online. And not because it has to be and we want you to invest more money. It's because if you don't, you compromise the ability of the online experience to deliver at its best possible level. Okay? Look at this, this is fantastic. Like, feeling, okay, I don't know how many people have wrote it, so. Can you see the level of, I mean, this is beautiful. Experience is like, it's an abstract concept. This is what I've learned by speaking with the companies. It's just abstract. It's not, you can't put your finger on experience. You just have to go beyond and think of it as like a living creature. It changes with circumstances. You know, there's been a pandemic. Guess what? The experience that people expect is different now. It changes with every change that there is around in the environment. Okay? So what are you going to do with your analytical data now? How are you going to go about figuring out why there is a 2% conversion rate decrease on a certain page? What has it been affected by? What are you going to be A/B testing? It's difficult. So now we go beyond this into a derivative model. We need to be able to predict what we need to change without having to look at all the analytical data to start with. Analytical data has its role to play by all means, but at the core, to understand if you're going in the right direction, you can't invest thousands of hours looking at numbers. We have to start thinking about why something needs to be changed. This is very important. There are two main reasons. One is because there is a gap that you need to fill between the customer's expectations about that experience and the experience that you're currently delivering to them. Okay? So there's a gap. That means that it's a lost opportunity. Or in fact, there is an opportunity to earn more money and to create a reliable stream of income. Right? Because if you meet that customer's expectation, they are going to be more likely to buy. Take that glue away from those things. Now, the second thing is that you need to, I'm not going to go in that specific order. The second thing is that you need to understand who you're doing it for. You have customer segments. So a change that you apply to the experience may be applicable or relevant for one type of audience. It may not be applicable for another part of your audience. How am I doing on time, by the way? Are we there? Yeah? Good? Okay. Now, there needs to be something that tells you what you need to change and how you need to change it. By how much do you need to improve something for it to become efficient or effective, right? Example, you have, you notice that in the browsing experience of the site, people are finding it hard to pinpoint the right product because you got a million products. And you decide that you need to improve filters. But by how much? How does it need to be improved? What's the best practice? What is available on the market, right? I just want to remind everybody that like back in 2011, there were about 100 technologies that you could plug into your e-commerce, right? And they would enhance the experience. Right now, there's about 50,000 of them. So how is a merchant going to pinpoint the right technology to plug into the system that will make the site, you know, skyrocket the results? There's another thing. These technologies, they change over time. They add new features, and they start overlapping with each other. Another fantastic thing. Makes it even more complicated. Okay. And the last and final thing is when. When are you going to make these changes? What are you going to be prioritizing? So we need something that is going to help us do that. And to do that, we need to look at the customer's entire life cycle. And this is what I call from zero to hero. So we want to take, everybody wants to take their users from being completely unaware of the brand to becoming loyal advocates of it. People that will defend the brand when needed. People that will promote it. Okay? And this happens in three main stages. Before the website or the digital experience, during the digital experience, and after the digital experience. Okay? I'm going to pop them all up on screen. So the ones in black, so the find and engage is what happens at the very beginning of the experience. You're trying to attract the right people, or the people that you have in your target audience. And then once they're on the website, first of all, make sure that these are the actual people that you intended to bring. Because if you build an experience for people between 20 and 30 years old, and then you attract people which are 50, 60 years old, guess what? The experience is not going to deliver, right? I think we're all clear about that. So now you look at the browsing part and everything that happens within the website. These are what we call now pillars of e-commerce success, the ones that we mentioned before in the research, right? So these are the defining moments in which the experience has its maximum potential. If it's good, it's going to deliver. If it's not, it won't. And these are areas that you just simply cannot neglect, because these are your foundations. So when we talk about pillars of e-commerce success and what has the highest impact, it's those that we saw on the on-site experience. Let's talk about the website, right? And you have to add another two, which are relevance and personalization, and the other one is speed. These act as multipliers. If you have a beautiful site with a fantastic experience which takes 55 seconds to load, it's useless. If you're not able to personalize that experience around the interests and objectives of the individual user, it's not useless, but it's not going to perform as well. So this has been consistently proved across all audited companies, businesses, industries. There is no exception to this. So no matter what company you're running or you're working with, bear this in mind. Now, what we want to achieve, again, everybody following still? Yeah? Okay. What we want to achieve is something simple, is a visual way for people to understand where to act. Now, this is a real-life example. I'm not going to say who the client is. It's a real-life example, though. So they are underperforming in all areas of the on-site experience. Okay? We didn't put speed and personalization here, but they are underperforming everywhere. In a similar way, in a similar amount, so how do you decide what you're going to be changing? If you're looking at the browsing experience, the browsing experience is made up of a ton of things. These are the core elements, okay? There are more, but these are core elements. So taxonomy, filters, search, these are really, really, really important, right? But how do you decide how to change these and which one needs to be prioritized? This is another live example. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it's a B2B core business, right? B2B company, 160,000 plus products, okay? And a pretty decent revenue. But their B2B users are not using the platform. So we did this audit with them. We went through this process. And we noticed that the expectations of their clients is to have, for example, a very, very good search tool. And they essentially didn't have it. They had a very rudimentary search. But when you have 160,000 products, gosh, you need a search tool. Okay? On the other hand, user-generated content, which is so important in B2C commerce, fashion, luxury, and all of that, for them it's nearly irrelevant. There is no expectation, no real expectation around that, if not some reviews that tell you whether you can actually trust the company or not. Can I buy from these guys, right? And they don't even have it. But is that the priority? Not really. It's the least impactful thing. What you see here, at a glance, immediately, is that there are taxonomy, filters, pagination, and search mega issues. Okay? And connected content. It's pretty big. I mean, okay, it's not a great site at the moment, right? But we're talking about something which is visually, no analytics, you can visually see where you need to act. So what I want to do today is leave you with something. We're coming to the end phase, okay? Bear with me. I want to leave you with something that will help you start your transition towards that derivative method. I would like to give you what we have been using until now to do the assessment. So the 140 plus questions that we ask every single merchant to score all those areas across all the pillars of on-site experience success. Now, you will need some help initially to just understand how that works, and I am available today, online, offline, to carry on the discussion. But if you do want access to this, just let me know, and I'll send you an email with everything that you need to know to start that process, and I can tell you more about it. Now, the 4 takeaways of this. There needs to be a switch towards a derivative method to make decisions so that it becomes quicker, safer, better ROI, less risks, less time, capitalize on the investment sooner. More clarity of vision. That's the power of simplicity, right? And then there needs to be, you need to prioritize experience foundations. The reasons why you need to prioritize the foundations over the pink unicorns, like the fantastic features that some have built in the past, is because that creates a steady stream of income. I'm not suggesting that you invest less on your e-commerce site. I'm suggesting that you prioritize the foundational layer, because when you do, the pink unicorn that you invest on, your experimentation, the cool features, take Adidas when they did the shoe customizer, right? You could write your name on it and all that. That's experimental. They also did like pop-up stores, digital pop-up stores. There's no one there. You just go there, choose the shoe, and it comes out of the box. Does it work? Does it not work? It doesn't matter. You're experimenting. But you can't experiment on everything. Otherwise, the reliability of your incomes or of your clients' incomes are not going to be that great, right? So you want to create that foundational layer, which is based on all the best practices and what we're seeing and learning from all the companies, and then use the money that you're making, in part, of course, to experiment. Because if you don't experiment, it's going to be really hard to find things that will make you stand out compared to the competition, okay? The pink unicorn experimentation is fundamental, but it comes just a step later, okay? Let's get the basics right. And the last and final thing is that you need to reassess periodically. Because once you have that method and you've got your little spreadsheet with all the questions, it's a matter of ticking boxes. Reassessing can take an hour. Even the initial assessment can take an hour. So are you willing to invest 1 hour of your time to understand where you should be investing next? I think that there would be no one here that says no on that. So, QR code. You can download the entire deck, access the deck simply by scanning the QR code. And there are a number of other things that I would like to give. So first of all, let's talk here at Meet Magento. I'm available for you. Anyone who wants to talk and understand more about this process, please contact me. Come and have a chat. I don't bite, not often at least. Connect on LinkedIn, so there, if you access the deck, you just have to click there and it'll go in my profile. My email address is available. Of course, there is the after party, so let's not get too many drinks though. And there is this other thing. So with the participants to this research, the merchants, the e-commerce leaders that I've been working with some of them, we kept in touch very regularly, and we need to find a way of doing this. So we created this WhatsApp group, and it's called DCILC, which is Digital Commerce International Leaders Club. It sounds really posh. I love it. And if you want, there is a registration form there. So you give me your contact details, you tell me what you want to hear about, and I'll keep you updated. Well, I say I, but it's we, because ultimately these e-commerce leaders are participating in the same way. We organize events, we organize online sessions to dig in deep into all these topics. We've done a few already, but we have recordings of those if you want to see them. And if you go on the View Events calendar list, you will see that there are a number of events already planned for which we're looking to define dates. And I would love to see everybody participating. If you are an e-commerce leader, meaning that you have the responsibility or the accountability of making things happen, get in touch. Be part of this, because this community that we have seen in Magento can be even broader. You can broaden it up to all the digital merchants, right? This is not about the individual technology. This is a method. This is a bit of a revolution of thinking in a different way. It took me 4 years to get here. And the more people join, the quicker this evolution becomes. And we are releasing content nearly on a weekly basis now. So join in, and that's it from me. Thank you very much.